I think we find ourselves at a crossroads. There's one way to turn this around, maybe.
My experience in talking to people about this is that they simply don't understand what's about to happen.
If you've got a country or a region of the world that is losing population, that's devastating. I mean, that would say that that region would be in a depression, we'd call it in economics.
You know, there's been a great decline in maybe 70 countries now that are below replacement fertility.
Replacement fertility is the number of childbirths per woman that is required to replace the existing population.
We're going into a new era.
Why is this aging, and why is this demographic winter occurring?
When fewer children are born, there are proportionately more elderly. This is called an aging population.
The world for the last 200 years has been population increases pretty much in all countries. So that's the challenge, to try to first understand why it's happening and then some consequences. Certain population reduction in at least some countries, and in many countries without immigration, enters us into unknown terrain where there are potentially very significant negative consequences.
Sub-replacement fertility a generation and more ago means that the working age population, age 15 to 64, is going to be slowing and then peaking and then declining more or less indefinitely as far as the demographer's eye can see.
Northern Italy and parts of Spain, with fertility rates below 1, homes in abandoned villages all around Europe.
First, there's few births. Fertility rate is very low. It's 1.38 in Europe, whereas the rate needed for survival is 2.1.
While Western Europe is experiencing low fertility, parts of Eastern Europe are already experiencing population decline.
From 1989, for example, to 2002, the population has decreased by 13%.
A lot of people I've talked to about this say, well, isn't it great if the birth rate is going down, because after all, that's fewer carbon footprints and less stress on Mother Earth. Not thinking about how much their own care is going to cost when they get older. This has to do with the fads and the way we frame our problems, and right now the framing is very much about global warming and population density, sprawl, and that kind of thing. And I don't mean to say that those things don't matter, but that doesn't mean that other things don't matter and that we're not facing social and economic problems that are also related to population decline.
The United States will face severe problems even before population itself may begin to decline.
Imagine if all your taxes went for nothing but Social Security and Medicare, and you still didn't have health care as a young person. All right, so we face real challenges here.
Low fertility levels, which is the main cause of declining populations, means we don't have so many people in working ages compared to those who are retired and collecting retirement and other benefits. How are we going to finance it in the future?
It's also true that never in history have we had economic prosperity accompanied by depopulation.
Well, human capital refers to the knowledge, skills, information that people have. Modern economies are based on information and knowledge, not physical strength, but mental command, different types of information and skills. So it's the foundation of modern economies. Any economy that doesn't have substantial investments in its people's human capital won't be able to become a modern or a rich economy.
The stock market, from the beginning of 1990 to its bottom in 2003, went down 80%. Now, these are blue chip stocks, the Nikkei. It's like the S&P 500 or the Dow here. We were some of the only people in the world to see this because we were looking at demographics. Everybody else was saying, oh, Japan's government doing this, and then their companies are this productive, and they have these management methods, and their people save more, and they work harder. Those were all symptoms. Demographics said, boom, and then bust. And yes, everything unraveled. Real estate, stocks, everything.
When you have declining number of consumers at different ages, you discourage research and development, productivity growth, which is the engine, fundamentally the engine of growth in any economy.
We think when the United States and Europe go into this slowdown, particularly by 2010, due to demographics, that at first it's going to hit emerging countries and their stock markets are going to go down and their economy is going to slow. Now the difference is they will have the demographics to bounce back once they recover from that, whereas the United States and Europe will continue to slow, and countries like Europe and Russia slow almost forever. Russia, to me, is a big problem waiting to happen because they've been a major military power in the past. They still have a lot of access to that potential power. All that power has declined, but now they're going to go into an economic crisis. Russia's government is going to be dealing with a collapsing economy, much greater falling taxes.
It seems a strange thing with population growth so important to society that we never hear about that side of the story. Could it be that we are simply not comfortable with how that story unfolds?
We are facing the demographic catastrophe. The number of the young children are becoming less and less. And for such a small nation as Latvia, it might even endanger the survival of a nation. So it's very crucial for us to change the demographic situation.
One of those paradoxes, I mean, everything you look at life and the universe has cycles, and so does demographics, and so do countries and their development.
You're going to gradually have the weakening of the West.
The Romans in the time of Julius Caesar were totally preoccupied by the fear that they were not producing enough children. The sterile, pagan nobility died out, and with them their ancestors' idea of Rome.
You look back in history and no part of the world stays dominant forever. I mean, Rome was great, and now they're, Italy's doing well, but they're nowhere near leading the world. And Greece used to absolutely dominate innovation and philosophy and science. Because countries, as they get more prosperous and more urban, that's the two things you see with progress, particularly in modern time, people have fewer kids.
So maybe the time of Western civilization has come and now we're going into a retreat.